We don't want to kill the panda, we merely want to stop it reproducing. But if you stop it reproducing, is that not actually killing the... We don't want to kill the panda, we merely want to stop it reproducing the results it had against us last season. One of the things about getting older, about growing up at all, is suddenly looking back with mockery on your own previous tastes. You know, we've all done that thing where you get some photographs of yourself when you were younger and you're like, look at the state of my hair, what was I thinking? I wish I still had hair, mind you, but look at it, what are those clothes like? I wish I could still fit into them, but what are those clothes like? Absolutely crazy stuff. I don't know what I was thinking. You know, 10-inch lager. What was I thinking? Why would anybody drink that back in the day? You get that thing, but you adapt a kind of filter as you get older. You put a wee filter on it and you start to recognise things that you will be mocking in a few years' time and you maybe don't want to do. It's in your tastes as well. I don't just mean like taste buds when it comes to 10-inch lager. But like films in particular, that's the one I really notice it. It's stuff that you watched 10 years ago and you thought was fantastic, it meant the world to you. You watch it back and you go, God, that's awful, how embarrassing. And it's for that reason that I don't want to watch La Vie en Rose again. 2007 Edith Piaf biopic starring Marion Cotillard, great actress, and it really affected me at the time. I really enjoyed it. It was quite traumatic. You really went on the journey. You got into it, but I'm worried if I watch it again, that filter I'm talking about, you kind of suspect that's a one-watch job. And you get films that I'm just watching that one time. That'll do me. You get films that are awful, you know you'll never watch them again, but the other ones you think that was good, but I think watching it again there's films that I've watched maybe 2 or 3 times over the course of 10, 20 years even, and by the 4th time I'm like, yeah, that was good, but that's me, I'll never watch it again. That's me. Is that right, Alec? That's really interesting stuff. But what happened with Marion Cotillard, La Vie en Rose, that came out in 2007. 2008, the following year, it was Gran Torino. And Clint Eastwood's Gran Torino. And I'm like 40 by that point almost. I'm probably 40 by the time I watched it. So it's not as if I'm just a young rube or anything like that. I know what kind of films I like. But I thought it was great. It blew me away. It's fantastic. This is Clint Eastwood, even then, he was old and he's acting in it, he's directing it, and he's a kind of hardened war vet. His wife's just died. His local parish priest wants him to come to confession because he feels that'll help him. That'll bring him some sort of consolation. But Clint's still, a beer guzzling old pain in the neck who doesn't really care. He thinks this young priest is just a young fella who doesn't really know anything about life. Why the hell would he want to talk to him? And then this family from another continent, a part of the world where the US has been involved in a conflict. I think the conflict that the Clint Eastwood character actually fought in or took part in. They move in next door to him, and he's initially really racist towards them, and then doesn't want the company, but they kind of win him over. And there's a young fella there who he takes under his wing a bit. And there's a scene where either the young fella, either Clint or the young fella, are the wrong side of this door into the basement in Clint's house. I think somebody trying to keep the young fella there to stop him getting into trouble. But the door has got like a grill, like a metal grill, instead of a pane of glass, because it's indoors. And then Clint just starts telling him about stuff he did, with his wife, did in his time in the service, and that he regrets. The stuff that would come out in a confessional. He thought, the grill and all that, and talking to somebody on the other side of it, that's a confessional. And Clint himself is an avatar for US guilt or things that the United States did wrong, where they went and fought in other countries, and people who helped them ended up being really mistreated afterwards by the US. They're getting mistreated in the States, having come over as a part of a conflict that the States started and asked them to be allies. And I thought, this is absolutely genius. This is fantastic. What a film. And there's the whole thing where he's help the young fella. There's the kind of semi-famous scene where he takes him into the barber's and he starts slagging the barber. This is how men talk to men. He's saying to him, so the wee guy starts just slagging the barber who he's never met before, slagging him rotten and going totally OTT and being racist. And it's like, whoa, and it's kind of funny and all that. You think, it's quite subtle actually how, guys, that type of guy gets on. If you need to slag somebody, to get a bit of respect, but if you go too far, you'll be completely ostracised. It's quite a subtle thing. This is a great film. This is really educational part of everything else. This is speaking to me. And then it must be about 10 years later. It was on ITV4 or something. I'm saying to my wife, I remember I watched that. That was a great film. And it's long enough ago, I've forgot. Let's watch it again. And it was bilge. It was absolute garbage. It was racist. You know, like an Al Murray pub landlord sort of way. The acting was terrible. Why the hell would these folk? It's really handy these folk happen to have moved in next door to him and all that. And it was just, you know, he's going about, you know, the folk, like all sorts of hard cases and that, and gangs are scared of him and all that. And he looks like a 90-year-old stick insect. It's just, it was absolute nonsense. So for that reason, I'm not trust myself to watch La Vie en Rose again. I think it's a one-watch job, but most of all, there was a scene in the middle of La Vie en Rose. If you know anything about Edith Piaf, you'll know that, of course, famously she had an affair with Marcel Cerdan, who was the middleweight champion of the world for a short period. And he lost that title to Jake LaMotta, the Raging Bull. And I think he dislocated his shoulder or something during the fight. Marcel Cerdan, I think it's French-Algerian, French-Moroccan, French-Algerian, I think. Marcel Cerdan, but he dislocated his shoulder in that fight in Detroit. I think it was the 10th round. So LaMotta becomes, LaMotta was fighting an injury in that fight as well. But he becomes world champion, you know, and that's in the other biopic, you know, Raging Bull, which is one of the films that I trust myself to watch a million times, and it's brilliant every time. I've watched it endlessly. That's the happiest moment. That's the lovely, happy moment in Raging Bull. It's when Marcel Cerdan loses his world title to Jake LaMotta, the Raging Bull. Whereas in La Vie en Rose, Marcel Cerdan, it's the saddest moment, the most traumatic moment, because he loses his life. He dies in a plane crash in real life. Marcel Cerdan, it's the late 1940s. He's having this affair with Edith Piaf, and everybody, he's going to leave his wife. He's going to leave his wife and I think kids as well. As a total scandal. We know what the French are like. And also, they always say they're going to leave their wife, don't they? They always say they're going to leave their wife. They never do. They never do, girls. But apparently they were really in love. There's the love of Edith Piaf's life, and he's arranged a rematch with Jake LaMotta, and he's supposed to go back. He's going to go for a training camp, but before he does that, he's going to New York. He's in the States fighting all the time, but he's going to New York to meet Edith Piaf, who's obviously on tour, singing, because they're having this affair. She says, I'm coming, I'll meet you in New York, and then I'll go to this training camp and get ready for the rematch with LaMotta. But of course, what happened in real life is he died. The plane crashed. I think to a stopover in Portugal or something like that. But not just him, I think everybody in the plane died. It was 48 people or something like that, and some other properly famous French people died in that flight. Real tragedy. So you know it's coming. You know this moment of high emotion, high impact, high intensity. It's this pivotal moment in Edith Piaf's tragedy-addled life. That's one thing I knew, apart from a few of her songs. Edith Piaf, this is one thing I knew that was going to have to happen in the film. So you're waiting for it. You're thinking, how's the writer going to do the script? How are they going to deal with this moment that everybody's expecting? How's the director going to deal with it? How are the actors going to deliver it? What's going to happen? And the way they did it was just, it still dragged you in there. You got that. You know it's coming. But the way they brought it about, you think, oh no, this is, and then, oh my God, it's quite mind-bending. It was great, but I'm suspicious that if I go back and watch it again, it might just be a wee bit camp. And that's the whole thing. If you want, I don't want to ruin it by watching it again, but I'm saying to you, if you want to have a kind of moment of high tragedy, you know, like a Killie disaster, a real feeling things are absolutely awful and maybe even greeting and what have you, real tragedy, go and watch La Vie en Rose. 2007, Marion Cotillard stars in it as Edith Piaf. It's probably on Netflix, or it'll definitely be on Amazon Prime. You might get it in Sky Movies, whatever, but it's there to be watched. Watch that. Don't flounce down the steps at the back of the Copeland Roads or the front of the Sandy Jardin. I'm heading for the vomitory. I'm out of here. And then mince on down Mafeking Street to Copeland Road or along Edmondson Drive or something like that. Just giving it, no way. Minute 20, 3-0 down. I am not taking that. I'm out of here, by the way, sister, whatever like that. Just going to make an arse like that. Going to know just, but don't waste your money. £36 my ticket cost me. I want to see the whole football match. I want to see what happens. I care about my team. Do you know what I mean? And particularly in the kind of nascent period for this actual Rangers team, maybe you want to hold their hands if they're going through a bit of a bad time. How often are Rangers 3-0 down after 20 minutes? Never. No at Ibrox in a European match. I've got 2 other times it happened in Europe, but it was both away for him. I'll come to that later, but it's never happened before at Ibrox. I can't find, maybe it has, I haven't studied it forensically, but there's no other time I can think. You've seen something that's never happened before. Maybe get beat 7-1 off Liverpool, but there was one each at half time in that game. you've just never seen this before. Why not just be there? Why not just be there for your team? Because I'm sick of this Russell Martin, and I'm sick of it. But we knew it was. How you doing, folks? This is. I mean, look, this is Ibrox. Ibrox, baby. Ibrox, baby. Remember that? Yanis Hadji. We're 2-0 down to Brugge. It's only one more goal the other night. We're 2-0 down to Brugge. They scored the second goal. Was it the 59th minute that night? First time we played Brugge in Europe. Second season under Steven Gerrard. We're in the last 32 of the Europa League. Can't even believe we've got that far. It's amazing. It's all good. We're in bonus territory, and it just seems this is a stage too far because Brugge they've scored an absolute perler in the first half, bang for about 40 yards out into the top corner, and then it's a lovely second goal they scored just before the hour mark. A fella that they'd go on loan for Barcelona, I think, knocks it in, and it's like we're getting outclassed here. We're not playing bad, we're just getting outclassed. Anybody go? Probably folk did probably leave at that point in time, but there's no flouncing. There was no big mincy walkout kind of stuff. Like, I hate it. And, we pull a goal back, Yanis Hadji. Joe Aribo scores one of the goals of the century. His big mazy run, beating 15 players to slot it away for 2 each. And then Hadji, free kick, deflection. Oh, it's going to be one of the greatest nights of your life. That has to, and it's so, that was the last season of the away goals rule. So we've still conceded 2 goals at home. We've only got a 1-goal advantage getting into the second leg. But we play so well, but we just, did so well in the turnaround and the comeback at Ibrox. It's totally ruined Brugge. We can miss a penalty. Hadji misses a penalty over there. And we still going to win the game 1-0, Ryan Kent, and we win 4-2 in aggregate. No, but if you walked out at 2-0, you're going to miss that. You're not going to, I couldn't even live with myself. Especially if we're getting beat and we're not going to come back. I can't kind of live with myself walking out on Rangers. It's no difficult being brave at the football. There's times when you're like, Marseille, we're playing Bruges the other night. Recollections, addled with recollections of 92, 93, when we beat Club Brugge 2-1 with 10 men. Things were looking bad that night as well at 1 each, and we win it. You never know what's going to happen. Crazy football. How are you going to be there? By not walking out the minute things go badly. But the whole thing with Club Brugge, that was the second home game in that first ever Champions League group stage. And we end up, we're 2-0 down to Marseille, who are the richest team in the world. I think at that point in time, Milan were probably a bit richer, but they're heading to win the European Cup. Like, they win the first ever Champions League, and en route to it, they're 2-0 up against us. Going on 5 or 6, and then we come back to 2 each. Gary McSquiggan scores a header. Then Mark Hateley, and I remember there's a step over from Alexei Mikhailichenko. I was at the front of the Govan that night. There's a step over from Alexei Mikhailichenko who beats the guy and he's heading for the byline. And we've scored the 2 previous goals through headers. And I remember thinking, I was only 23 at the time. I was healthy then. I was playing Fitbit on that. I was thin almost. And I remember thinking, if this goes in, I'm going to die. My heart will explode. And I don't mind. It'll be a great way to go because it was so scintillatingly exciting. And, it didn't go in and we didn't make the Champions League final. We came damn close, but it was a position of, it looked like it was all done and dusted. It was all over. It's never all over. You should stick in apart from it. It was just interesting to see what's going to, how you doing, folks? This is your fat egg. On Tuesday, we wanted to sack the manager after the home leg of our Champions League playoff ended in a 3-1 defeat. But on Wednesday, after their home leg of a Champions League playoff ended 0-0, Celtic fans wanted to sack their entire board. When will we ever catch up with their levels? When will this tiring one-upmanship ever end? St Mirren at Paisley from Amazon Prime to Drinking the Wine preview pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet tonight. It's actually on just now while I'm recording this, but I will get to watch it later on. It's Rob and it's Stuart, so it's going to be carnage. It's going to be chaos with they two sinking their teeth into the 3-1 defeat by Bruges on Tuesday night in the first leg of that Champions League playoff tie, and they'll be sinking their teeth into what they think Rangers should be doing at Paisley this Sunday. And I think, like everybody else, they'll be assessing the general mood just now. My name's Alec Anderson. Freezing rests his head on a pillow made of concrete. Again. Oh, feeling maybe he'll see a little better Saturdays. Oh, yeah. Oh, hand out. Faces that he sees time again, ain't that familiar? Oh, dark grin. He can't help when he's happy, he looks insane. Yeah. Even flow. Thoughts arrive like butterflies, yeah. Oh, he don't know, so he chases them away, yeah. Oh, someday yet, he'll begin his life again, life again, life again. Yeah, my name's Alec Anderson. That's me murdering a wee bit of Pearl Jam there. Sorry, Eddie. But Arizona Bay fella who gets in touch regularly on the post. Thanks to everybody who gets in touch on the post. Great community, you could almost call it. I certainly feel it's a wee community of folk getting in touch regularly on the posts underneath these pods, and it's really sustaining and rewarding and lovely, and I really appreciate it, Trips, because it's particularly when I'm so horrible to you by singing, you know, what I call singing. It's horrific, and for you to endure that every single pod that I do is something. It's something. It's just hey, I'll not forget you, because that's what happens. You stick by when things are a bit rough. You know, you still stick by people that you've. You know, I'm just trying to say. And Arizona Bay, he's saying to me, "Oh, you better watch yourself." 'Cause I'm singing John Martin's. So again, well, destroying John Martin's Solidaire in my post-match reaction pod for the Bruges game, standing outside Ibrox the other night, and he's saying, "You better watch John Martin's and not Estate." John Martin died a few years ago. They're not going to sue you for royalties that you're due them. Like, that's actually, you know, the hard job them actually recognising it, realising it was the same song. I'm so bad, I'm so tuneless, you know. But it's the way it kind of hits me, and I want you to know. I just did a wee song thing because it's. To let you know, don't take me seriously. Don't take myself too seriously in these pods. I certainly don't take my opinion too seriously. It's just, I'm just putting it out there, you know, like a wee life raft for anybody who happens to feel the same way as me, or maybe give you something to think about. And it's a bit of company for me as well. You know, I know that if I throw my voice out there, maybe somebody else will say, "No, Alec, I feel the same." Like, oh, right, that's fine. That's what it's all about. But there comes a certain point. I'll be discussing the St Mirren game, discussing the starting 11 possibly for Paisley and Sunday, and the squad in general, and the manager's tactics, and blah blah blah. The technical standard stuff you see in various Rangers podcasts that are going about just now, any football podcast really. But I think mostly I'm reacting all the time emotionally to what's happening in a particular Rangers match, in a particular Rangers situation. But I feel as if this one I'm really reacting to the reaction. I'm reacting to the reaction. We lost a game by 2 goals in Europe the other night at Ibrox. That's the third time that's happened in the last 11 months. You know, it was actually 3 goals we lost to Lyon in a lesser competition. So the reaction I get, I'm certainly being told in no uncertain terms by lots of people, you know, on their podcasts and on social media, and that, why they're reacting the way they are. But I think I have to be honest, I think it's out of hand. It's understandable to a certain extent, but not the full. And I'm always suspicious of podders or whoever who get particularly energised and particularly kind of, I'm just calling it. You know, that's it. Time of death, Russell Martin's reign. You know, people who get more energised by a bloodletting, the chance for a bloodletting within their own club. I'm doing the singing, I'm doing the stuff, and I'm going to do my usual. I've already started doing it: films, TV programmes. But it's going to be particularly intense in this one because there's been so much emotion about everything I'm hearing and seeing and stuff, talking to folk and that about that game and what I saw in the stands more than on the park, even, I would say, on Tuesday. Going to be more emotional reaction to that, and when it's emotional, it's just metaphors, analogies, and it's songs that have meant something to you, that have heard in your life. Sometimes I just sing a song at the beginning, as I say, just to let you know I'm an idiot. Don't worry, this isn't super serious. But sometimes the song itself will have come to me in relation to the game, in relation to the situation, and it's everything that has come to me in the past 3 days since that match against Bruges has all been about the situation with the club and particularly the support in general, and it's best expressed through a whole lot of. We'll get into it straight away, right? Well, we'll start off with a Rangers game. This is a train ticket, subway ticket. 7th of May, is that 2023? Yeah, on the back I have written Rangers 1, Aberdeen 0. Celtic win league. Sorry to do that to you. I'm not writing it in a kind of way, go on the hoops, fantastic, champions again sort of way. But it's just to remind me, I'll do this thing, you know, it's like it's QR codes was the final straw. old man like me, I like to have a physical souvenir of the games I go to, but it's just not possible these days because most all your league games are on a smart card, especially at Rangers games. And for a while I was printing off all the QR code tickets, but then the printer starting to run out of ink or something. There's no real need for a printer these days, other than it's just a souvenir because you've got everything on your phone and what have you. So I've never bothered renewing it, so I've stopped printing off my tickets so I can keep them as a kind of physical reminder of the game. But I'll do that thing where, like, if I go to a non-league game or like the juniors, get the old Bovril, and I keep them. I wash them out, don't worry. Oh, there's that little kind of latent Bovril buzz. Yeah, lovely. But I'll write on them. Oh, this one, Scottish Lowland League, Rangers B2, Gretna 2008 1. That's quite a complicated score to read out. Rangers B2, Gretna 2008 1. What? But if you know, it's the Rock, Dumbarton, Tuesday 7th of February 2023, because it's a physical reminder. So if there's an occasion where I don't take the car to the football and I've got to get the underground, I've got a subway ticket and I'll just date that. I'll just write in the back of it what actually happened that day, so it's an easy remember. And this makes me remember exactly what happened that day. Of course, Celtic won the league. It was Michael Beale's, the season that Michael Beale had taken over as manager from Gio after Gio had drawn 1 each at St Mirren. But Michael Beale took over, and it's far from the end of the season. There's still a few more games to play, at Ibrox, but Celtic have clinched the league that day despite us beating Aberdeen. And I took the car. There's a reason why, but I'm not 100% sure. And that meant I had to catch the underground at 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock kick-off on a Sunday for us. So I had to do my post-match reaction for Jersey, it was at that time, and I was doing it on my own that day, so I was going to have to get it done in like half an hour if I was going to catch the last underground. And of course, as you've noted already, the more that's happening, the more significance a result or everything that's happening that day, the more I feel the need to rant on endlessly. So there was no way I was catching that subway. I had to walk up to Exhibition Centre train station. And my fear, of course, was that the Celtic fans had been celebrating. They won the league away from home, but obviously they're all celebrating the city centre. They'd been the trains coming back into my part of Glasgow, and I'd get caught amongst. I'd be caught up in a huddle or something like that. They'd force, Tennent's lager down my throat or something like that. I thought, I can't be bothered with this, but it had to be done. Had to get back up the road. So the train wasn't actually that busy. Most of them were still doing their drinking in the town centre. And I'm on the train, and I'd got myself in the 2 wee seats that don't face any other seats up the back, but down the front of the carriage there's a couple of boys, absolutely no harm to anybody. They're just a bit pissed and they're talking loudly about how great it is to win the league again. And I think one of them was wearing a GAA top, and I don't know, Galway or something like that. And they're talking about each other. One was a bit older, the one was in his 30s, the other one was like in his 50s, and the one in his 30s, he's like, maybe it wasn't just drink he was having. No trying to characterise, no trying to judge. Any Rangers games these days, the ganja is just reeking everywhere you go. So he's saying to the other guy, "Do you think about it? Ange, even his name, Ange, it's a part of Rangers. It's in the middle of Angers. His ANGE, it's in." And I'm thinking, this is not the time to stand up and say, "Well, his name's no Ange, is it? It's actually short for what his name." Don't identify yourself, Alec. Sit down, shut up. And the other guy's going, that's actually a thing. It just sums up how he's just get right in the middle of them. He's just split them, destroyed them almost smack. He's inside their heads, kind of thing. He's even inside the word Rangers, and the other guy's going, you're right, mate, you're right, totally. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, you're an actual crackpot. That's a really good point. You nut bar, you total nut job. And I was thinking, we're going to be fine. This is going to be absolutely fine. Because I was judging him, wasn't I? I was judging the guy really hypocritically, because if you've watched even this podcast, even the 23 minutes I've talked for so far, you'll know that I'm every bit as mental as that guy. I come up with the same amount of garbage, and at least he was drunk. At least he was on something. All I'm on is decaf Tetleys and a packet of Golden Wonder ready salted. So, but I remember thinking it's a bit like George Smiley in that scene in Tinker Tailor, or Alfredson's Tinker Tailor, when George Smiley is played by Sir Gary Oldman, and he's talking to Benedict Cumberbatch, who's playing Peter Gwilym, and they're in Control's flat. Control's died, and they're looking through his files because they're trying to find out who's the rat, who's the mole in the circus. And they're talking about Carla, who's the head of the KGB, the guy that ultimately trying to outfox. And it's been an intense couple of days, so they're having a wee drink at the end of the night, and they're getting a bit pissed, and George is recollecting. They do the same scene. I mean, it's central to the whole book, the whole story, Tinker Tailor, and they do the same scene in the TV version, the BBC version from decades earlier, with Alec Guinness playing George Smiley. But they actually act it out, which is quite embarrassing because it's a scene that happened in the 50s or 40s or 50s. I think it's the 50s. So George is about 20 years younger, and got Alec Guinness wearing this preposterous wig and try to. But Patrick Stewart that's playing Carla in the scene where it's set in. Gary Oldman is just kind of acting out himself in Control's flat, just talking about it to Peter Guillam, to Benedict Cumberbatch, and he's saying how Carla, when he was just a minion in the KGB, he got found out, or had to get back to the Soviet Union. They rumbled him. The CIA were kind of rumbling them all over the world, and they got him. He went in. George, he'd had his fingernails pulled out by the CIA, been tortured, and George goes in there to try and persuade him to defect. Because there's a whole lot of purges going on, whether it's Khrushchev or Stalin, but there's purges going on back in the Soviet Union. If Carla goes back to the Soviet Union, he's going to be executed. So just come with us to the West, and we'll give you a great lifestyle, and you can help us or whatever. And he's no, he doesn't even talk to him, doesn't even open his mouth. But George, doing the good cop thing, offers him a cigarette and then offers him his lighter, lends him his lighter, which he keeps. Carla steals it off him. That's central to the, to George, with all my love, from Anne. And he keeps the lighter, and he goes back. He would rather go back to the Soviet Union and face almost certain death than admit defeat. And George goes, and that's how I know we'll win. And Peter Guillam's like, what do you mean? He goes, because he's a fanatic. And fanatics are always trying to hide some sort of weakness underneath. And I think to myself, not realising that I'm every bit as much a crackpot as that Celtic, I just got different personalities, support teams. Like, aye, that's how we'll beat them, that's how it'll be. I was just maybe trying to console myself on the day. But the other reason that I was being so hypocritical was because I was just thinking, anger. I was doing the same thing myself. I've been thinking the past few days, it's not just Ange. You stick an R on the end of that, you're still within Rangers. It's Anger FC, or Anger FC. I'm going down the same road as that. I feel like that's how bad things have got after the other night, and it seems to be the anger is anger letting. I don't know when it became the best way to support Rangers was to be seen walking away from it. Don't get me wrong, half the folk that were getting up and walking down the steps, thanks BBC and all that for that. I mean, it was Prime that were filming it or whatever, but I think half the folk walking down these steps don't have going for a pee or a pie. You take all that's again by me anyway. It's not going to be, I don't need to worry about missing us scoring the winner just yet. I've got time to go for a pee. I don't have to wait till half time. I'll go and I might as well cheer myself up with a wee pie, get in the queue early while it's not as busy at half time. Half the folk were coming back to their seats, but a lot of folk were definitely walking out to say, I'm disgusted, I've had enough. When did that become, and I say that you're supporting me, it's interesting, just be there. So, this modern kind of phenomenon of confusing rage with toughness, kind of scorched earth moaning with some sort of activism. Don't get me wrong, anger is better than depression. Rage can be perfectly healthy, but it needs to be applied with pinpoint accuracy. Hope we're seeing with Russell Martin, the reaction to Russell Martin's poor start to a season that we were warned would start poorly if we actually wanted his reign to work. What we're seeing here is petulance, strops, kind of spoiled Wayne behaviour a lot of the time, the energy of doom-mongering and calling for sackings rather than the kind of boring maturity of giving it a bloody chance, of knowing our problems as a team are so deep-rooted that the real solution would always look like this when it first arrived. This is going to, hopefully that first 20 minutes was the nadir, the necessary nadir, as we have this kind of clear out of the deadwood, the attitude that's been seen as slipping up domestically for the last 4 years. But maybe it won't be. I know it's the nature of the goals conceded, the way we lost them was the real reason for the real concern. But we lost 4-1 at home to Lyon, as I say, less than a year ago, and they weren't even a Champions League side. We lost to them in the Europa League group. Ultimately we sacked Philippe Clement, but not before he'd got us in once again for the second season. The trot, he'd missed it. The round of 32 or the knockout playoff round and got us into the last 16, and both ourselves and Lyon ended up in the quarterfinals. We were both eliminated in the quarterfinals last season of that Europa League. So, but we're all so sick of doing well in Europe anyway. Everybody tells me that they're sick of doing well in Europe and then not performing against Motherwell, against Dundee. You know, that's so. I don't get what the beef is. The other night, you know, just clear it. To who? Where? What do you mean? Just clear your lines. Just put the ball. What you mean is put it into the stands, or knock it up the park straight back to Brugge. You know, just give them the ball straight back, which is not only a kind of complete failure to understand what Russell Martin is trying to do and what modern, basically evolved top level kind of football is about. It's also totally disingenuous, if not utterly hypocritical, ignoring how the Ibrox crowd would react if we kept giving, you're giving them the ball, you keep giving them the ball, you keep handing over possession. If we kept, for example, conceding the kind of corners, just get rid of it, just clear it. You know, you're going to be conceding corners, the kind of corner from which they scored their second goal the other night, almost directly, which was even more criminal than the first goal we lost. But that was just criminal marking. Exactly, it wasn't the fault of the system. It was a very real moment of this system being, at the moment, you know, for some of our players, too much. You know, against that level of opponent, it's just too much for them to process all the information they're getting on board just now. So everybody's happy to slag John Souttar for not shouting enough, for being a poor defender, but no one's cutting Russell Martin any slack on having to work with the defenders. He's slowly getting rid of the defenders he doesn't want, but he's not getting cut any slack for the amount of players he has to work with that he didn't bring in, that have got this, you know, the inability to understand the kind of system that he wants to play. It's not yet September. It's not even September yet. You know, just... So I think Russell Martin was correct in his post-match comments after the Brugge game when he was characterised as under the bus chucking of his players, but he was really just kind of pointing out what the hell's going on with his team. You know, I've got to apologise for Tuesday's post-match reaction, incidentally, while I'm here. My post-match reaction pod. I know we are all fond of calling ourselves mad and a kind of David Brent, you don't have to be mad to work here, but it helps sort of way. But I really was kind of glassy-eyed and ranting on Tuesday, genuinely stuck between kind of immediate relief that we'd only lost 3-1. I was just actually quite happy. The way that started, I thought we were going to lose 6 or 7, so it was only 3-1. And I was also trying to find a way of explaining how happy I was we weren't getting into the Champions League group stage without sounding kind of defeatist. And I mean defeatist in the most, not a depressive sort of way, just like defeatist in like, I kind of want us to get beat. I kind of don't want to go into the group stage of the Champions League. It's like I was trying to pretend and just be, like, I didn't want to sound like I was trying to pretend I was happy. That was my prevailing mood, simply to piss off the inevitable ambulance chasing Celtic fans that would come onto the podcast. It's quite a hard balance to strike. I mean, the American ownership is what allows me to the luxury of forgoing the Champions League group stage spankings. Did I say Champions League? That's a Freudian slip. That's what I think is going to happen to us if we go into that group stage. I think especially in a season where we would be, you know, everybody just wants to have domestic success. That's the big aim. That's the big complaint, domestic success. We don't have enough of that. So having to compete in the Champions League just be draining physical resources, mental resources, spiritual resources, just the concentration required to avoid getting tanked in some of these games. We just take away from our chances of changing it up domestically and beat, like the Celtic fans that were likely to visit my podcast, the new Celtic fans, the ones that don't really get it and are looking for a bit of gloating, they were annoying me because I felt compelled to then do my traditional thing of pretending. It's a pretense. It's just a laugh where I'll try and kid on that I'm deliberately rambling on boringly when I do that naturally, in an effort to get rid of, you know, Celtic ambulance chasers. You know, but I didn't really feel like that the other night. I didn't feel like doing that because I was kind of in too much a good mood, really, and it was just really weird. So I ended up kind of flapping about and being repetitive about the game itself and us in Europe and blah blah. Like kind of Giga and Butland, I was unable to decide who should take control of the basic clearing of our lines, and they conceded a goal, but I just ranted gormlessly in a kind of insensitive, totally insensitive tone. How often have I told you? How often have I mentioned this pod? You don't watch Heat because you admire the line where De Niro's Neil Macaulay says, do not attach yourself to anything you can't walk out on in 30 seconds flat when you feel the heat round the corner. That's not what heat's. Heat is about realising that you can't live like that. Heat is about, De Niro's character, Neil Macaulay, discovering that he wants the opposite of that. He wants to be able to put down roots. He wants to find love. So we don't walk out on Russell Martin in 30 seconds flat or Rangers in 30 seconds flat when we feel the heat of a complete rebuild coming around the corner in the shape of Club Brugge, and maybe, it's going to be Celtic a week on Sunday as well. What are they going to do? Don't walk out in 30 seconds flat. Hang around, show the love. Sorry, folks. I mean, Red Star Belgrade were a goal down to Paphos at home. Crvena's Zvezda Belgrade, the Maracana in Belgrade, they're a goal down after a minute to Paphos of Cyprus. The Cypriots are coming. They're coming for our players as well. Taking a lot, not just Aris Limassol actually beating us. They're coming to Ibrox and drawing. They're taking their players off as well, but that was a humiliation for former European champions Red Star. They showed the goal on the big screen at half time on Tuesday. I'm sure it was Ferencváros who were back in the hoops. I think they went a goal up. I'm sure they were a goal up at half time. They get beat 4-1 at home by Karabag. I know it's no consolation when other folk are suffering as well, but it's it could be a lot worse. There was that kind of crazy result happening. When's the last time you saw Rangers conceding 3 at home? And that's a reason to stay and watch the game. I don't think it's happened. As I say, I don't think we've actually conceded 3 in 20 minutes at home in Europe. We will have done it domestically, I imagine, at some point in the last 150 odd years, but I don't think it's ever happened. The only times I've found us doing that at all, both away from home, one was to Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, the 63-64 European Cup. The first round we played Real Madrid in the Bernabeu. This is Real Madrid of Puskas, Gento, Di Stefano. The Real Madrid who, most of the guys that won it in 1960 at Hampden, the 7-3 game against Eintracht Frankfurt. They were Eintracht Frankfurt who beat us by, they scored 12 against us, 6 in each leg in the semi-finals on their way to Hampden in 1960. The final was at Hampden, we get beat in the semis. But in both those games, they didn't score 3 goals in the first 20 minutes on Eintracht Frankfurt. So even that game, the first games that you think about, but Real Madrid in the Bernabeu in 1963-64, and we get beat 6-0 altogether. But they scored 3 goals in the first 18 minutes. I think it was 3 in the first 18 minutes, and like a bit Gento and Puskas. Puskas scored 3. He got a hat trick that night. He'd scored the only goal of the first leg at Ibrox. He scored 4 against us when we played Real Madrid in the European Cup, and he is also the only guy ever to score 4 in the final of the European Cup / Champions League, and he did that in that final at Hampden. He did it at Hampden. There's a Glasgow link. Whiskey for Ferenc Puskas, 4 goals. But they were 3 goals, and then in 1982-83 UEFA Cup, we played Cologne in the second round, and we played Borussia Dortmund. We beat Borussia Dortmund, as we always do, in the first round of that 82-83 UEFA Cup. In the second round, we got Cologne, also of the Bundesliga, and we beat them 2-1 at Ibrox. That's the first time I remember a player putting the ball out of play for an opposition player who was injured. And it was Harold Tony Schumacher, and I just realised it'd be like November 1982. In the summer of 1982, the thing Harold Schumacher is most famous for is not playing in 2 World Cup finals. It is for breaking the jaw of Patrick Battiston, the most vicious kind of body check of all time, for which he wasn't sent off in that 1982 World Cup semi-final in Seville, with the Sanchez-Pizjuan, where we played the Europa League final. But he put the ball out of play for a Rangers player that was injured. It's the first time I'd ever seen that, and folk are like, "Oh, that's nice." But he was almost on a big PR drive across the world after what he did in the summer. And so we won 2-1 in the second leg. We were 3-0 down in the Mungersdorfer after, I think it's 18 minutes, 19 minutes. We were 4 down after 21 minutes. So it's kind of a bit worse here, and we get beat 5-0, losing 6-2 in aggregate. That was a badging. I think I'd listened to that in the radio. Certainly there was no live TV at the time, thank God. But that was horrendous. But they put 3 past us in 20 minutes as well. So that's only the 2 other times I can find that it's happened to us. I know Celtic, that 6-2 game under Martin O'Neill back in 2000, nearly 25 years ago exactly. Probably 25 years ago this weekend, they beat us 6-2. I think they scored 3 goals in the first 11 minutes that day. So like 3 goals in an 11-minute period was the first bit. I mean, we scored two. We could have had a couple of other goals that I would won. A perfectly good one disallowed. It could have just been a crazy game, like a 6-4 game or something. Celtic were always going to win it, but it didn't need to be that bad. And of course, we'd beat them by 4 goals in the game before that, and we beat them by 4 goals in the game after that. But I just get remembered because what kind of idiots? That's aye. That's the only other times I can think of as getting beat. I'm going to just sod it while I'm here. Might as well talk about something happy. Do you know that we lost 6-0 to them? That was our heaviest defeat ever in Europe, right up until the Liverpool game in 2022-2023, the Champions League group stage, where they beat us 7-1 at Ibrox. So I was there to see us equal our own record. That was great. First time we'd ever conceded 7 in a European match as well. But that was that was something else. But of course, that was the 63-64 Rangers team who won the treble. So that's how much you should read into that. They're considered, the Jim Baxter, John Gregg, that's one of the considered arguably the greatest Rangers team of all time. It's one of 2 or 3 properly fantastic all-time lineups. That 63-64 treble winning Rangers team. So they get beat 6-0 by Real Madrid. This is Real Madrid of Puskas. And Puskas and Hento scored. They scored 2 of the 3 goals in the first 20 minutes in the Bernabeu in 63. So that's, I mean, Hento scored in a couple of European Cup finals. Puskas also scored a hat-trick in the 62 European Cup final, which was just like not a few months earlier. So it was decent opposition. And then against Cologne, who wore a Real Madrid kit when the Bundesliga was introduced. Cologne were very kind of media savvy, very commercially. Their owner was very commercially oriented, and as happened to be Leeds United at the same time, people had started seeing television pictures of Real Madrid in their all-white kit winning those European Cups. So lots of clubs were changing to an all-white kit to try and Liverpool even, I think Liverpool, when they played Cologne, who had adopted Real Madrid's all-white, they played Cologne in a European Cup playoff. Bill Shankly disliked the fact that Cologne was all one colour, so he changed Liverpool's kit from white shorts to red shorts, so they were all red. So it's a massive effect, that all-white Real Madrid kit on kits. But so that's Real Madrid, and somebody who copied their kit had put 3 goals past us in the first 20 minutes, and it was, as well as Harold Schumacher being in goals for Cologne, there was also Pierre Litbarski, and I think was it Klaus or Thomas Alofs? I'm always getting mixed up. I think it was Klaus Alofs was playing for Cologne that night, and Pierre Litbarski scored, and Klaus Fischer, I think, scores the goals in the first, or 2 of the 3 goals in the first 20 minutes. Like Klaus Fischer, who scored an overhead kick. Both Fischer and Litbarski had also scored in that semi-final against France in '82, then would play in the World Cup final. So it's the level of players we're up against then was something else. But we win the league in '64, then Kilmarnock won it in '65 before Celtic's 9 in a row. The only time Kilmarnock never won the league under Willie Waddle. So the following season they play Real Madrid. Now they go to they draw 2 each at Rugby Park, a game my dad was at. His scooter broke down the way back of it. They play Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. They play in the second round, and they draw 2 each at Rugby Park. Tommy McLean scores against them. He scores a penalty against them at Rugby Park against Real Madrid, And then in the away leg, Kilmarnock go 1-0 up, but they get beat 5-1. I think they're the only Scottish team to lead Real Madrid, in a competitive match in the Bernabeu. But it's quite. I think Tom McLean's playing that game as well. It wasn't him that scored, but they get beat. But so Kilmarnock have gone 1-0 up in the away leg, and then lost 5-1. And the previous season, in their league-winning season under Willie Waddle, Kilmarnock had played Eintracht Frankfurt, Real Madrid's opponents in that 1960 final. They played them in the Old First Cup, the forerunner of the UEFA Cup, and they lost 3-0 famously in Frankfurt. Then the second leg, Frankfurt went 1-0 up on them at Rugby Park, and famously Kilmarnock won 5-1 to go through. Sign of it being a kind of annus mirabilis and a great season for them. Fantastic, epic game. So not only is it the 2 sides, they've played the 2 sides that played that 1960 final in their own country, but Kilmarnock must be the only side who have conceded a goal at home in Europe first and then won the game 5-1. And in the following season have scored away from home in Europe and then lost 5-1. They've scored the first goal, then lost 5-1. And it's to 2 sides that have played a European final in their country. I'm just not wanting to talk about it because I'm just going to slag Rangers fans. I don't like doing that. Aye. Just before we scored our goal the other night, trying to keep it light, literally, I'm sitting, the boy next to me goes, you think your torch is on? I'm like, sorry mate, you think your torch is on? And he's obviously know what, because it's my crotch. I had shorts on because it was absolutely roasting. And I looked down, and there's a light. The torch of my phone had gone on accidentally, and it was shining right through. It was basically coming out my groin area. And there's a lot of kind of really dark tunnels down there that I don't like. But there's this light coming out and shining in my face, and I thought, oh, that's funny, It's like my shorts on fire. I said, I'm glad something's on fire tonight, And that was good. And I switched it off, and then we scored. And I'm thinking, maybe that was a sign for God. Maybe that was the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe that was it. Just, everyone's going to turn round. You're going to tip it, didn't he? No, we get beat 3-1. So that was, there is a light and it never goes out. There is a light and it never goes out. It was brutal. It is painful. But all this kind of self-aggrandising bullshit about how angry we all are. There's two things here. One, you walk out after 20 minutes, don't come back. Yeah, I can be angry as well. Pumping Peterhead 4-0 in the Petrifact Training Cup final. That's more humiliating. That's more humiliating than losing 3-1 at home to Club Brugge in a Champions League playoff. It really, but yeah, there was 50,000 at Hampden to celebrate us. It wasn't our fault. It wasn't, whatever. We'll not get into that just now. We're sticking by our team. We're quite happy to do it then. We're quite happy to watch them lifting a trophy, a lower league trophy that we never wanted to be able to compete for, really. But we're there, let's do it. The following week, we beat Celtic in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup as a championship side. Is that maybe it's actually more embarrassing for Rangers to be playing that level of football than it is for us to be losing at the level we're playing on Tuesday night. I don't really get it. And number two, I don't mean don't come back. I just mean, come on, chill out. And number two, what was your starting point of expectation? It's a common theme these days, but what was your expectation going into this season? Mine was short-term pain. Not to win the league this season. We were 17 points behind Celtic last season, ultimately. But we beat Celtic home and away in that. My expectation was to do something to kind of shorten that gap. And not win the league this season, but set ourselves up to win 4 of the next 6 league titles, if you like. At least 3 of the next 6 league titles, but probably 4. I mean, Russell Martin's already having to go kind of Mark Warburton on. There's no Warburton at the end of his Rangers career when he's on the ropes. I think it's basically the night we get pumped at Tynecastle. He's never going to move. He's never going to manage us in another game, but he hasn't officially left at that point. But he just starts doing that thing of basically saying to us, what you wanting? You were in the 4th division 2 minutes ago. What are you actually expecting to happen here? And that was at the end of his reign, but I think Russell Martin's having to do that at the beginning. And I'm sick of guys coming in and having a great, turning us around for 10 games, 12 games, whatever, and then by the end of the season it's all going pear-shaped again. But post-match on Tuesday, I think he was reminding us that we've been unhappy for years with our performances. So surely he's implying we'd take a couple of months of pain if that was going to set up years of kind of transformative glory. He doesn't get a job if the previous regime have done well, he said incorrectly, but that's why we're here. That's why we're at Southampton. That's why we're at Swansea, because the previous manager wasn't doing too well. But of course, there's plenty, as we well know, Gio turned up here because the previous manager had done so well that he get poached, that Stevie G went somewhere else. So it's not the only reason he's going to get a job, but you get what he means. So I'm always suspicious of those who are kind of most energised by the bloodletting at their own club, those most certain and vocal about how much they don't rate their own team. That's why I get most energised in the face of self-sabotage. I get myself, when I can see it self-sabotaging, that's what it is. Where is the love? I'm just asking, where is the love? Fen v Ben, did you see Fenerbahce against Benfica? No, it's Fen v Ben, the 3 letters that go up at the screen when the game's on the telly. I was flicking through the channels thinking, we beat them, we won there 3-1 last season. Benfica drawn 0, they drew 0-0. At Fenerbahce, we won 3-1, going on 5-1 last season. It's just, I was thinking, it ran versus, I was watching re-watching the Prime coverage. I didn't know we were that posh. I didn't know we were posh enough to be on Amazon Prime. Ran v Brew, and I just thought if you move the R, you take out the A and you put an I at the front, it'd be Iron Brew in Rangers against Bruges. I don't know what I'm talking about again, but I feel as if we're like a wee toddler being screamed at for no walking like an adult. I don't know if Russell Martin's the nanny in this analogy and we're the parents. I don't really know. But it seems unrealistic and slightly hypocritical, the whole kind of commotion. It feels very social media clickbait, very tabloid, very everything the opposite of nurturing. It feels like the kind of scenario where we get a new manager in mid-season and there's a few months of bounce and then we're back here again. The the current the current mood seems very self-sabotaging, and I'm reminding me of I was in a job. Another reminder, another anecdote, another story. I'm sorry, I will get to talking about the St Mirren game. It's going to be a long pod, and I'll break it up into chapters, folks, so you can come in and just have a look at the chapters below the description, and you can flick on to any bits that might interest you. More to the point, you can flick past this kind of emotional rambling of mine, but. I was in a job once, it was in a bank, and I think I caused the global financial crash back about 2008, but it was before then, and I was just doing like a dog's body desk jockey data input just to pay the bills, man, while I went home and worked on my music. And I was this department I was working in, and there was a lot of folk who'd been there for years, and they were proper bank staff. They were bank employees. It was a big they're proud of that, and they worked really as a hard job. It wasn't an actual branch of a bank; it was a kind of processing section or whatever. And they put in this new computer system that it was it HBOS or Lloyd's. There was so many takeovers, I can't even remember who it was I worked for. But there was this update of the system, and there was these guys were sent up by head office to come to this Glasgow office that I was working in. And they were kind of factotums for the top guys, and they were staying in Glasgow for a few weeks, and they were just going around these kind of big open plan offices, putting out fires with the new system as folk were trying to, and of course folk were going crazy. They didn't know how to work this new system, this new way of processing the payments or whatever. I couldn't work the old one, so it was no odds to me. I was completely useless at this kind of stuff. But I remember being in one of these wee kind of meetings with my kind of department, and one of the guys is explaining to him, he's got a terminal, a computer, and he's showing us how it all works. And the women and it was causing a lot of stress. It really was causing a lot of stress, this completely new way, because it was all targets, it was all about timings and getting stuff done on a schedule, as all jobs are. And the folk was just saying, no, it's no. Every time there's a problem, every time it's something they didn't understand, they'll just say, well, it's not working. That's why it's not working. That's why we just basically can't operate. This new system is a waste of time. It's holding us back. And the guy just had to stop. And he wasn't a young guy. He's obviously he's well above our pay grade. And he just stopped and he was like, this is going to happen. This system is here. The old one is going. It's already kind of outmoded. This will have to happen. And he was basically saying, you need to get on board or get another job. Because you have to know how to work this. I'm here to help you keep your job, basically. And a lot of folk did lose their jobs. And I feel as if it's the same. I'm just reminded of that just now. People are thinking, oh, we can have a wee bloodletting again. I think it's become a kind of bullying. I don't know if it's because we're Protestants and want to protest all the time, or is that thing of we didn't do enough back in 2012, but I think people feel David Murray when he wasn't the problem. It should have been HMRC who were protesting for just trying to make an example of us when Google and Starbucks and that mob are the ones that should have been paying their taxes. But all that celebration, I can't help feeling a kind of wry smile. I think people, when we get officially taken over by the Americans, I was angry. A lot of backtop anger kind of came out. And a lot of it was inspired by the reaction. People kind of celebrating, dancing in the streets. This is it. We've had to take over. We're owned by a consortium, an American consortium, big money. We're going to be fine. It's going to be great. And I got a few kind of, why are you being so negative, Alec? Why are you being so negative about this? This is why. Because I knew this was coming straight away. See, when you're too happy straight away, I'm being negative to get it out of the way, to get it parked, to get it banked. This is the negativity we need to be investing in this takeover, because they are going to leave us flapping in the wind at some point. We need to hope that they do enough to leave us with a legacy, maybe expand the stadium, that we can keep finance ourselves when they eventually leave, because any kind of fluctuation in the financial markets in this world, these guys will walk out on us and just without a second's hesitation. But we wanted these new owners and we loved them and we celebrated them. Well, they are doing what they are in San Francisco and they don't give a fuck what we're saying. They don't care how we're screaming and moaning and shouting. They're owning. We wanted them to own us. Well, they're owning us now. That is it. And you better get on board with this. This club is going to get modernised. As far as I'm not talking to you, folk that talk to me, my regular people who are good enough to patronise my pathetic wee blog here, my pathetic wee kind of podcast of a blog, of a diary entry. But this, I feel as if there's a kind of a momentum building up that, no, we can't take this. We can't take the fact that it's taken more than 2 minutes for me to put a team together. We can't take the fact that we're undefeated domestically. We can't take the fact it's just not going exactly the way we wanted to from the word go. It is going exactly the way I wanted to, because it looks like it's been stripped down to the bare parts, the component parts, and that's why it's all over the place when we play somebody like Club Brugge. It's all over the place when we play Motherwell and we play Panathinaikos, but we're not losing to them. In fact, we're beating Panathinaikos, which proves there's enough to it. But this thing of, I want us to be winning, to be beating Motherwell, beating Dundee, and it's just instant progress, instantly. And I want to win this season's league title, and we're chucking that, and Sunday's a must win, and all this kind of nonsense. I feel there's a little kind of, we're going to get rid of this guy as well. We'll be telling the Americans what they have to do. They can't ignore us if we all walk out, if we don't go to the guy. They can. They can finance it. They've got the money to do it. This is the guy that's going to solve it. This system, this new playing system, apart from anything else, has to work. We wanted to be 21st century. We wanted to have, no longer looking at a Rangers team that's, getting the life sucked out of it by doubters in the dressing room, by, the scar tissue of past camp. Well, you need to dig deep and really strip that thing down to its component parts. And that's what's happening just now. This takeover is going to happen. In San Francisco, they can't hear us. They've got the factotums installed. Patrick Stewart was there before them, but he brought them to the club or whatever. He's certainly helping them out, and Kevin Thelwell and what have you. They've got these guys, Greta Steinberg, whatever his name is. We wanted 21st century Rangers and 21st century football. This is how it happens. The Souness Revolution, April 1986, and that was it. It was just instantly solved. No, it wasn't. I think Lawrence Marlborough got involved in the club in 1977. And it was 1985 when David Holmes got put in place, and he started preparing to get rid of Jock Wallace and to try and get Graham Souness in. And Graham Souness had a moustache. He had a moustache, he had facial hair, Graham Souness, which wasn't allowed, unless you'd cut a huge gash in your chin like John Gregg did before on the way to the 1972 Cupwinners' Cup final. It was a talisman for John Gregg to have facial hair. To cover up the stitches. He was a player manager as well, Graham Souness. We didn't have player managers. That's not what Rangers did. And there he was. He was shaking it right up. But he took over. It was April 86. He officially announced as manager, and we were getting beat off Clydebank, getting beat off St Mirren at Love Street. He comes in the very last game of the season. We beat Motherwell 2-0 to qualify by the skin of our teeth for the UEFA Cup. Him and Walter are actually in the dugout that day, and 6 days later he beat Celtic in the Glasgow Cup final, which was a bigger deal then than it is now. It was a first team game, even though all peripheral players played in it. But it was like 40-odd thousand there. Celtic had just won the league the previous week, so it was a wee kind of marker for the following season. But the following season we're getting beat at Easter Road and all that. I think this stuff had been in the works for years. It didn't happen overnight. And this is the same kind of thing we're getting here. I mean, there was 5-0 doings. Southampton took a couple of 5-0 doings under Russell Martin. But did Liverpool no lose 7-2 to Aston Villa at Villa Park the season they won? They ran away with the English title, and they won the English title for the first time in 30 years back in under Klopp in 2019-20. I'm sure that it was 6-2 or 7-2 or something that got destroyed. It was definitely during the stadium was empty. It was definitely during the COVID season anyway, and that's when Liverpool won the league. So I feel as if that might be what happens to us as regularly against kind of better opposition, getting heavy scalpings. But with more kind of comparative resources here, though, than at even Championship Southampton, far less English Premier League Southampton and Championship Swansea. This is what we wanted. We wanted to be in a situation, but a style of football that would allow us to swamp lesser, don't be disrespectful, but in terms of resources, etc., lesser opponents. We want to be able to completely wipe them off the map when we play them at football. And this is how you do it. We're playing this kind of style of football, this all-out style of football. St Mirren, I want it to be a bad result. you know, I don't. It's not a must-win game, not by any manner of means. We're 3 games into the season. I don't fucking, you know, the most we're going to be is what we would have 2. If St Mirren beat us, we'd have 2 points, and the most we could be is like 7 points, I think, behind everybody else after 3 games. We're to, I think, if we're to beat Bruges and eliminate them, if we're to go into the Champions League group stages on Wednesday night, we need St Mirren to beat us. It needs to be that bad. You know, because but if we're just going to write off the Bruges game, which I kind of am as well, as long as we don't get pounded, if we just want to concentrate on beating Celtic, then I feel as if we have to draw again on Sunday, or at least it'd be a woeful performance. We don't want to show our hand too early. I want Russell Martin to do the Pilsen thing, the Pilsen at home thing against Celtic at home. They're going to Kazakhstan, they're going to Almaty. I think they're going to win the tie, Celtic. I think they'll go in a lot better away from home than they did at home the other night. But they're off. I mean, they're all sack the board and that kind of thing. It's not just, look at how spoilt they are. They've been getting told, the Celtic support, for years they've been getting in touch with us, giving, Rooney's, we're winning endless league titles, we're winning trebles. And look at the amount of trophies that Callum McGregor's won compared to James Tavernier. Like that. It's just sack the board. This isn't good enough. Brendan's going to walk. He should walk. That'll make it more dramatic. They're doing exactly the same thing as us, to be honest. But we just hod the new. They're terrified. You know, it's because we've got a tiny bit of money and there is zero loyalty in the bank for all these achievements that they were thrown in my face. And the best thing ever, I got just a wee kind of thing. It's not. I'm not, again, I say it. Not every fan. There's no such thing as they're all like that. It doesn't work like that, but. And there's a lot of good Celtic supporters that get in touch with us and just talk about these things soberly. But it was very telling. There's a fella who has been in touch, and that thing when somebody gets in touch with the post, you can click on their little avatar and you can see the previous 3 or 4 posts they've had. This fella gets in touch like yesterday, saying, when you think about it though, Rangers and Celtic, the Europa League is really their level. Seriously, and his 3 or 4 previous pods were, it must help you cover up the pain. It must help. Is it anything that you can do to lessen the pain? Know your place, minions. No, it's all total in your face. I don't block folk unless I really have to, unless it gets properly offensive, But it was also every time I tried to post something kind of witty or trying to have a laugh, I can see the tears. It's all that kind of stuff. And then suddenly Celtic have slipped up in the home tie. They're still going to win the home leg. They're still going to win this game against Kairat Almaty. I think they'll win it quite convincingly as well, to be honest with you. But it's okay. I mean, we really just bathed Europa League, so I didn't bother saying anything. I just went, I think it's just now in terms of resources and all that. But historically, they should both be in the 2 of the biggest clubs in Europe. But that's the kind of stuff that's happening. That's across the road, across at Celtic. So for Christ's sake, we're not that far away. Just hold the line. At least try out this system. Try out this style. I think it all works we conceded 2. I'll leave that for later. It all works, or none of it works. I think that's the whole thing with Russell Martin's style. That's why you get Pilsen at home getting absolutely leathered. And then, we leather them. The games, we didn't play well in that game. We let it go in the second half. It was a perfect performance. We're 3-0 up early in the second half. Get the subs on. Just see the game out. Administer the result. It was a perfect performance. But you get that versus Alloa at home. We're playing a League One side. We made a lot of changes, obviously 10 changes, but still, it was an absolute drag. We only beat them 4-2. We never really put them to bed. Or like the kind of performance we got the other night against Pilsen, because it's a holistic system. It all works or none of it works. It's no kind of departmental, okay, I'll get Chris Woods in as the goalkeeper, then I'll have Terry Butcher centre-half, and I'll get a defence sorted first, and it's no doing that well. Christmas time we'll get in Graham Roberts, and that's us get the defence sorted. We can just build on top of that. It's no Walter coming in January 2007 giving it, I'll get Ehog and Davy Weir in, that's my defence sorted. That's sort, I can just build on it from there. It's not that. It's Jack Butland having to be up at the halfway line with the ball, knocking it up to, the 8's gone wide. We're basically a mirror of what Bruges were doing the other day, because, again, Russell Martin knows that manager, the Bruges manager. They've been on coach, they've talked to each other, they know each other's style. The first goal that we lost, Danilo is through on goal, as it is approaching the edge of the Bruges box. He gets tackled by their centre-half. The ball spins up, but it's not a pass by any manner of means. The centre-half wins the 50-50, so the ball spins on a bit back towards our goal. And about 10 yards outside the Bruges box, a Bruges midfielder just lumps the thing straight up the park. And because we've got it wrong at the back, catastrophically, but they're in on goal, and the guy's lobbing it into an empty net. That's what we're trying to do. And that shows how it works. It worked against us the other night, but that's it. It's like if you lose the ball outside the opposition box, it can be in the back of your net. That's why Giga was getting the ball after his major rick, him and Butland making an arse of it for the first goal we lost. That's why Giga wasn't punting it into the stands, deep in his own half on the byline. He was turning it and hitting it up the park and taking a kind of risk that I don't like that. That's making me scared. He's trying to. He can't lose the ball. You've got to always constantly be trying to play yourselves back into the game, no matter where you have it. It is, if you've got to pass it about between the centre halves until you can work out what to do it more regularly, that's what to do. Keep the ball. That's the only way you're going to win the game. I think the biggest failure of this system is also its fail-safe, and we saw this at Motherwell. If we've got the ball at the back and the opponents want to attack us, want to come out and just rush us, and that way Hibs and St Mirren used to do, just come out and just throw themselves at us physically and try and upset. That's what we want. We want folk to come to us. We want them to try and take the ball off us at the back. That's what makes the system work for us. That's when it works best. So I just think it's really, and it's obviously quite complicated. It's quite high risk. It needs to operate really smoothly, but it does work. It will be well worth it. Pre-match presser, sorry, St Mirren, that's an hour and 10 minutes. Sorry, folks, this is far too long. But he hates us. I think it's already becoming apparent that Russell Martin hates us. And I literally saw somebody retweeting his appearance on Sky Sports today, a Rangers supporter, on Twitter, giving it, I hate him. These folk they hate him. The vegan thing is getting really played. Oh, fucking vegan cunt. No, what? I think part of me now thinking he did the vegan thing because he's actually got a digestive problem. The guy's played championship level. He was a centre-half for years in the English Championship. He would leather at anybody who wants to come up and have a word with him, for the stands. This idea that it's just green politics, it's this confusion of folks' political beliefs makes them a certain kind of machismo. If you're thinking about life in those terms, I know Fitbit needs a certain amount of, you need to be kind of at yourself, you need to be able to handle yourself and all that to a certain extent, have a bit of gravitas about you in the dressing room, that kind of stuff. I don't think there's no any problem in that department, I think, with Russell Martin, but some of this stuff, just like, I hate him. How can you fucking hate him? You don't even bloody know him, he's hardly in the door. But that's social media stuff. But he said he doesn't do social media, but then he started listing the stuff that he's pulled up for by Muppets on socials, his middle parting, and and I'm dying. I mentioned it as well, Russell, but it's because of the jealousy. I love you. He's not wearing the traditional suit and tie because he sweats too much in that. I can associate with that as well. He's feeling the strain, I think. He's dying to have a pop, and this kind of, that's part of the job. Defence from supporters, Rangers supporters who are slagging. That's part of it. If you can't handle it, you can't. That's handy, isn't it? That's handy. Because not only does it let you just spout all sorts of abusive garbage towards people who are trying to help your own club, employees of your own club, players and managers, it also means that you can then claim when they come through, when they get through the abuse that you've been giving them, that you helped them, that you kind of stress tested them, you helped get them there. They got there despite you, not because of you. And I just don't want to be part of that problem for anybody. I don't want Super Ali going through his thing. Mark Hateley as well. These guys, absolute legends. And it wasn't just a case of folk were going, don't really fancy them. It was Ali get to fucking much the same for Hateley as well. And I never want to be part of that. Again, did I do? I actually can't remember if I did sing that. I was a young man at the time, and I certainly had problems with Ally McCoy, but I was an idiot. Yes, there's guys that are far too old. They should know better. Audition this kind of stuff, but he knows he's not a fancy name. He was saying this in the press conference today. He wasn't a good player, but he knows the energy at the club have been bad, and that's him. I know why folk don't like me, but it's Rangers supporters he's talking about, and I think it's clearly getting to him. But he's coming back. He's coming back at it. He's not just sitting there and being like a huff or whatever. But he's trying to put his point across. And the energy at the club has been bad. He's constantly trying to say through his press conferences now, but you wanted this sorted. You know, there's been a problem here for years. Everybody's been getting slagged, and where has constantly sacking them got you? He's tested when the Rangers Review new guy asked him if it was a must-win game on Sunday, and I think he come back with a great reminder that his very first match in charge was a season definer, and he won that against Panathinaikos. But it's obviously defined his season in any way, shape or form, as he predicted before it was played. The hacks, he's talking about them. You guys, the media, your guys' job is just to get as many clicks as you can. It's the way of the world. It is what it is. So he's basically saying the media aren't doing him any favours. But it's an honour to be here. We'll throw in the thing about I love being here. I love this club. It's a real honour. But I can only control what I can control. It's kind of blocking out the outside noise. I just need to get on with his job at Ibrox. This is the thing. There's no Vox Pops and reporting Scotland the other day, and maybe on Wednesday. And I don't know if those bastards are making sure they only show the interviews that went the way they wanted them to. But it's outside New Edmiston House, and I certainly only saw it in interviews with Rangers fans. There's only 3 or 4 folk getting, like, they're all getting between them a minute to talk. But it's like, oh no, it's not going to work. No, Russell Martin's got to go. Is everybody you spoke to saying that? Really? I don't think I'm going to start hanging about New Edmiston House so I can go, no, me happy, me clappy. I'm loving him. I think he's fantastic. Just to try and break up I think it's a kind of construed narrative. I really do. There's no doubting that we're not playing well just now, but just for me, we weren't supposed to be. It's proof that we're going in the right direction, that we're playing so badly right now. It's it's what we were told was going to happen, and it's happening bang on. If we're not getting beat heavily enough yet, but he can only control what he can control. You've got to look at the long term, because if you just look at the short term, you're going to, basically you're screwed. He was saying, and everybody in the city bumps into is great. So maybe it's easy to be in the keyboard slagging him off. Maybe I'm just bumping into the right people and all that, but I'm hearing all this abuse on the keyboard. He's saying he doesn't pay attention to social media, but he obviously does. But he's calling his critics shitebags. All these folk are calling him out for his hairdo and his politics and his personal beliefs and all that. So I've yet to bump into anybody. I'm walking about the streets of Glasgow. If you want a piece of me, here. I think that's basically what he was saying. It's unbelievable. Big Rahman wants a piece of him. Rahman of STV, who he took the face off last Friday. I kind of stonewalled him in a quite a weird way when Rahman asked him about the transfers involving Hefty and Mendy. That's what, don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? Said our manager then, our head coach back then. So Rahman today saying, when I talked to you when you first took over, you said you could win over your sceptics, but kind of the stadium was empty, and Tuesday it wasn't even a full crowd to start with, and then folk are walking out after 20 minutes. So how do you like me now, Russell? He was kind of saying, but he was straight into a whole kind of it's not about me line of answer. He's focused on the team. He's trying to bring as much energy for the staff and the players as he can. So that was every time he's getting asked this in the press conferences, you think you're shite? He's just saying, it's not about me. Even if you win a game, some people are still going to dislike your long hair, your centre-partin, you're not wearing the suit. So he's mentioned that's the point in worrying, because there's always somebody going to have a problem with him. And he's been super supportive. He's got a lot of support from Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, and they're all aware that if you're building something, it might take some time. That was quite a pointed thing that he pointed out. The project, it's a project, it's going to take time, and I'm being supported. And he's talking about how it's why I wanted the job, and he thinks it's why he got it, basically. He's just letting you know, it's a project, it's going to take a while. That's why I'm here. I'm suited to doing this. The psychology of the team, he was asked about that. He's kind of saying there's a no-blame culture. We're all responsible. We obviously had a go at them after the Motherwell game for not having the right levels of physical input, the right levels of effort. But after Tuesday, it sounds like the players obviously weren't singled out for blame, or he didn't give them a hammer in the dressing room. But the physical input that they had in the second half, he was kept talking about how proud he was of the second half on Thursday, and that's annoying a lot of people, obviously, because we lost the game in the first 20 minutes. That's done nothing to turn it around. So, but that physical input in the second half has to be there all the time. He played here, so he knows how demanding it can be. Again, we're the problem. And you're right, Russell. Go for it. Just have it back at us, mate. Quite right. He knows he has to be empathetic with the players at times too. I mean, sometimes this whole kind of, we hate Celtic so much that we actually forget to love ourselves. It's quite insane at times, so no wonder he has to be empathetic with the players. We heard Max Aarons and all that, the way he was coming out after the game and all. You can see that these boys are stunned at how much vitriol they're getting from their own supporters. They need to know, obviously, the levels here. They need to know how much that, there has been a lot of players we've had in the past few years that turn up for European nights. Oh, the crowd are right up for it, Celtic games, etc. So it's maybe nice that a European game has turned for them, because they're not interested in doing the routine games against Hibs, against St Mirren, whatever, at Ibrox. So, but there has to be a certain level of them knowing exactly what's expected of them, but it goes beyond that, I think, especially this early in somebody's reign or somebody's time at the club. But the manager or the head coach was seen Sunday against St Mirren as exciting. It's a good challenge. He was complimenting St Mirren's physicality and their tactics and that. But for him, it all starts with the mentality of our team. We have to go toe to toe physically and win the first ball, win that the right to play our own kind of football. So it's not exactly airy fairy, tippy tappy kind of nebulousness here. This is half time at Auchinleck kind of pattern. So it's just before kick-off at Auchinleck. They'll win the battle first, basically. Just win the battle and then you can play football. So I don't know where it is, but he wants to add a bit more experience to the squad before the end of the transfer window, which he can't wait for the end of. And maybe two more guys. I don't think they're both going to be experienced, whatever, but I think he's looking at getting two more players in. This ties in with what we know about Parag Marath at Leeds. He's known for, at the end, just the last week of the transfer window, they strike with a couple of good signings. He's hinted, it sounded like it was Connor Cody he was talking about, saying that they were going to get somebody of experienced. They were chasing somebody, but it fell through. So that's him, Connor Cody. I think he went to Wrexham from Leicester instead of coming to Rangers. But he's intensely explaining the fact we're at an early part of his plan all the time. The players he was specifying a meeting with his midfielders, they're taking on so much that it's actually, they're thinking about he's giving them great detail about what they've done wrong in one game, basically, and then they go out and they try and rectify it in the next game, but the circumstances of that game are different, so they're making other mistakes. He's basically just, he says it will become like breathing. It will be second nature at some point when they get into flow, when they get into even flow. It's Rangers doubters are thinking, nah, you'll be sacked if we don't win on Sunday, mate. No, he won't. I don't think he will at all. And it was a psychological thing against Brugge. We get flustered at conceding so early and didn't really recover our composure in time. They were 3-0 down before we knew what was happening. Other news, of course, we had Hefty. He's left. Hefty's gone. That was confirmed a bit earlier in the week there, after the game against Brugge. So I talked about that in detail before, but it's a good move for him, especially for getting the $6 million that's generally accepted. We're getting from a good move for his career as well. Hefty, apart from anything else, he's been at Cyprus, then he goes to Rangers, a much bigger club than any other experience in Cyprus. He's two different cultures, and then he's going to go back there to play in Brazil for a while. Still a young man, but he's got a bit of maturity about him. I think if they can just sort out his delivery, a bit more kind of tactical awareness, keep him a bit sharper, he'll be a great player. We'll see him going to Benfica for about 20 million, and then he'll come back in the English Premier League or something like that. But for 60 million, hopefully we'll get plenty of clauses in there. Cifuentes, Chifo, who knew he was still here? Centre half against Dundee. He's going to go on loan to Toronto. That's the route. It wasn't confirmed by the time of the press conference today. So he's off on loan to Toronto. Just try to get him off the wages. Ben Davis has gone to Oxford United. He's going to go there on loan, but his contract, Chris Jack was talking about this in Rangers Review, his contract runs out at the end of the season, his contract with Rangers, so he's going on loan to Oxford for the season. So that's him basically gone. We're not going to get a fee from him. Of course, we spent like 3.5 million was it, we spent on getting Ben Davis in here. Did not play a lot of football, scored that winner. Did he score the winner against Real Betis at Ibrox, the only goal of the game, or was it he kicked? He was following the ball after a set piece and he kicked it, but he kicked, I think with his feet. He kicked somebody else's foot that put the ball. My God, what was his name? Abdallah Sima. He kicked Abdallah Sima's foot onto the ball, I think. But that was his best moment, I think, in in a Rangers jersey. Ben Davies never really suited to the club or suited to the game in Scotland. The Oxford United, who won the League Cup, the English League Cup, their only major honour, 1985-86. Robert Maxwell from beyond the grave. He gets his revenge. He's trying to buy Rangers, didn't happen. But Robert Maxwell, that's him. He's getting Ben Davies, and I remember that. I had that Oxford United strip 85-86, and somebody was talking to me also in the comments saying how we're going to end up having our worst season since 85-86 when we finished 5th in the league. And that's the game. I went to every game, home and away. I was at every league. I was all bar 2. I think it was 2 games. Was it 1? It was 2 seasons in the trot. I just missed 1 game, and we were both away at Aberdeen, I think, midweek. I was just a teenager at the time, but I remember 85. Maybe I was affected by how badly Rangers were doing that I bought myself. It was the market in Salkits. I don't know, must have been cheap anyway. It was Oxford United. I think it was actually their away top, but they won that League Cup in 85-86. Oxford, where Ray Houghton and what'd you call him, John Aldridge were playing for them. And John Aldridge, he obviously made his name in Welsh football before making his way to Oxford, winning the League Cup there. Then he won the Championship and the FA Cup with Liverpool, but he'd won the whole set of the clubs he was at domestically in England. John Aldridge, but maybe that's what Russell Martin he ends up back in the English top flight doing well. John Aldridge. Maybe that's what Russell Martin's trying to do. He was in Wales with Swansea, and he's coming to us, and then he's going to go back to a major English Premier League club after he's a massive success with ourselves. Rid van Yilmaz has said his goodbyes. He said goodbye to everybody today, according to Russell Martin. The deal had been confirmed at the time I started this podcast, but I don't think we're getting the, what was it, 3.5 million we spent on him. Rid van, again, another one didn't work out ultimately, but he definitely had good moments. Rid van, he did really well against Celtic a few times, did badly against Celtic. I remember he missed that penalty in the League Cup final. That was the only penalty missed that day. Maybe that was unfortunate for him, but he was sensational against them at Parkhead. And that the cracking goal we scored against them, we beat them 3-2 there last season. Playing the wrong wing against them at Christmas time or back at the festive period when we hammered them 3-0. He had his moments, Rid van, a bit wee for the left back position, but I don't think Max Aarons is much bigger at right back, to be honest with you. But anyway, he's away. It looks like he's going back to Besiktas, back to Turkey. All those rumours, the constant rumours, will be ending. That's my first Years Net podcast. I was talking like this. I was talking even slower than I am just now because I was nervous. It was 5 years ago. I was really nervous. I didn't know whether I should do it or not, and I was a bit clueless. But I had Stuart Weir and David. They were hosting. David was hosting. David Wren, and they were very nice to me, very supportive, and it got me through it. You know, and eventually you get the confidence to talk quicker and blah blah blah. And everyone's, if you get a bit of support, you're eventually going to be okay. We should bear that in mind when it comes to the way things are going just now. I think that's the 3 times Rangers have played. The last 3 times Rangers have played Europa League home legs of a playoff, we won by a single goal. You know, the playoff to get you into the group stage, we won by a single goal. That was Alashkert, Galatasaray, and what was the one before that? Alashkert, Galatasaray, and there was one when we have to go back to the play. Legia Warsaw, when Alfie scored in the last minute. The last 3 times we have played a Champions League playoff tie, the home leg, the game at Ibrox, we've shared 4 goals with a Dutch-speaking club. You know, PSV 2 times 2 each, and then of course, but it's a wee factoid for you there. The team, what do you think is going to happen on Sunday? The team, no Giga, he's suspended. Egaman, Desser's apparently only fit enough to run in a straight line just now, so I would just put him in the centre circle, point him towards the St Mirren goals and tell him to run in a straight line. Gasma will just play the ball in off him, not be a problem at all. But he doesn't look as if he's going to play. He might be fit for Tuesday, says the manager. Wednesday against Brugge. But Egaman, definitely not. Absolutely no way. The manager keeps really denying quite stridently that Egaman is not ready to start. I think he's ready to go out and loan. I think Leo might soon up their offer to a spa weekend for 2 in the Brodick Hotel tickets to Mother Goose at the Kings in December, and a set of steak knives. Take it. That or 11 million. I would take that for Egerman before the transfer window closes. But this kind of Tav hate and the hysterical crybaby desperation to get Aarons into right back has Shockaroony calmed down to Tav needs to cover at centre half. No, shut up, we need him at right back instead of that kind of bomb scare Aarons. But get Magloma back in at left back, but he is too young. Why haven't we signed an experienced left back yet? And it's like, can I calm down? We're the bomb scare, us, the support. We're going to end up exploding the confidence of any new arrival or making him feel like the god who can save us all, so his confidence implodes like 2 months down the line. It's actually crazy out of hand just now. We've suffered from poor performances against lesser opposition for a wee while now. Yes, St Mirren are the best of the lesser opposition, you might say. The worst for us, but right now we're like a kind of divorcee dad turning up for his first date and screaming at the woman, why didn't you iron my shirt for me? And it's not my job, you sexist pig, Wayne. And B, I've actually never met you before, but this is online dating, obviously. But it's not that we're being wildly impatient. It's not just that we're being wildly destructive in the way we express that impatience and who we express it to, but we're clearly reacting hysterically. We're reacting to previous damage done to us, and it's far too entitled. Yes, divorcee dad deserves love as much, perhaps more than anyone, but no one gets it on their own terms. There's no love if you get it completely on your own terms. St Mirren will fight us, and just like dad has the love of his kids, something that happened with his previous wife, before they were divorced, and it's a tangible, something to hang on to. Well, last season we got to the quarterfinals of a European competition. The season before that was the last 16, won the League Cup as well, Queen's Park was terrible, yeah, but we reached the 3 previous domestic finals. Just stop overreacting. It's a reset. Calm down. You're not going to get your whole the night, but if everything's right this time next year, you might have a second wife. So my team for Sunday would be. It's already kind of affected the team by an injury and suspension. Giga obviously suspended, but we're just playing this game to make sure we can get Giga back in the team for the Celtic game. Egerman, it's a hard no for him starting. Dessers a probable no, and we've also got the next 2 games to consider. We're going to kind of rest players or rotate on Sunday because we've got Bruges away on Wednesday and Celtic at home the following Sunday. And then there's the incoming bids that Russell Martin was talking about as well. A lot of players, their agents are telling them that they could go other places just now. A lot of our players, we want to go other places. We're getting people off the wage bill like we wanted to, and of course we're immediately just going back to complaining about who's still on the wage bill. What about Mitondo? Get rid of him. And we're talking about how we're not getting enough money for them and all that. The money's fine just now. The money's absolutely fine. We're in the Europa League and we have got this player trading model is an absolute, it's done now, isn't it? We've got new owners, they've got money. It's going to be fine. We're resetting. I would go with Jack Butland in goals. Now the problem is Manny Fernandez. Folk are thinking Manny Fernandez looked kind of decent against Alloa, against who we lost 2 goals. We've got John Souttar, we reckon, is going to play at centre half. He should start at centre half. But you could have Tav in there. Tav to play at centre half, I think would be quite good against St Mirren. But also Big Manny Fernandez is in there, and I fancy that. Just seeing what that's like against the guys that play for St Mirren who usually ragdoll the likes of Insiala and Robin Proper. Big 6'4" Manny would sort a few of them out, so that might be quite good to see. But I just feel as if Tav's going to play somewhere. Either Magoma, he started too well the other night, our new young left back, and he needs a rest, so Tav will go in at left back, or he's just become Mr. Multi-Purpose, Mr. Utility, Tav, in the space of two or three weeks, and nobody's complimenting the manager for these guys who wanted rid of Tav, only complimenting Russell Martin for how he's utilising Tav, not setting him out as captain and instant picket at right back. But there you go. I feel as if, for example, you could have Aarons and Magoma playing at full-backs, and then you get Tav in there beside John Souttar. I think he's going to rest or drop one of or 2 of Rothwell and Diamandi, and he might rest or kind of to protect Raskin, Gassama, Ant-Man, but particularly in that midfield 3, I can't see him resting all 3 of them. So I would go maybe with Raskin, with Lyle Cameron and Asgard in front of him. Maybe time for Tello Asgard to start, and Finlay Curtis on one side, Mikey Moore on the other side of Danilo, who definitely looks as if he's, definitely looks as if he's going to be playing Danilo. But I think one of Mikey Moore or Finlay Curtis are going to start the game, and one of Gassama or Ant-Man are maybe going to get a rest. But yeah, I predict it's going to be 3 each. So we're heading for... We conceded 2 goals away to Pils and then 2 goals at home to Alloa. And that's us now conceded 3 goals at home to Club Brugge. This is after the 2 goals against Pilsen and Alloa, and that comes after us drawing 3 out of 4 games, 1 each. So it's getting hit. I think we're going to draw 3 each against St Mirren, and we're heading for conceding 4 goals against each of Bruges and Celtic, or we're heading for us completely Russell Martin's new Rangers announcing themselves against Club Brugge, but hopefully Celtic. What is that? 1.5 hours. Been a lot of stuff this week, folks. Sorry, definitely talking too much here, but I look for. You watched Goodwill Hunting. Goodwill Hunting. It's if you haven't seen it, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. If you haven't seen Goodwill Hunting, the line, it's not that bad, Goodwill Hunting, but there's a line in the film where Ben Affleck and what do you call him, Jason Bourne, are ripping off, definitely in parts they're ripping off the Robert Redford Oscar-winning film Ordinary People, Best Cinema 1980 Oscars. Ordinary People, it's particularly scenes between Judd Hirsch and Timothy Hutton in Ordinary People from 1980. It's a kind of young guy and a psychiatrist, psychologist, that kind of relationship. They get right into it. It's a bit adversarial, and then he eventually comes in. He's the only guy he really respects. He's becomes like a surrogate father to him. And it's the exact same thing with Robin Williams and Jason Bourne in Goodwill Hunting. But there's a whole scene where he's like, I look forward to the day, Ben Affleck character saying, this is quite a good thing. He said, I look forward to we turn up every day, because Jason Bourne is saying how he just loves hanging out with lads. That's why he's a genius, a maths genius, just a general genius. But he's holding himself back, really, because he only knows life Brooklyn with his mates, getting out and getting bevied and working kind of labouring jobs and things like that. And his mates saying, you better take that job, you better take that gig, the university gig. Oh, why should I? I want to just hang about you guys having a laugh. He says, aye, that's fine. He says, but every day I come, we have a few laughs and all that, but I come along and I pick you up at your place every morning. I beep that horn and out you come. He says, and I pray I'll look forward to the day that I beep that horn and you don't come to the car because you're gone. You've went and you've taken one of these, but you've become. It's like basically saying you're actually making a fool of your pals by not becoming the best you can be, by doing the best thing you can. You should go and totally exploit your natural talent. The big kind of fat, floaty guy from June, he plays a kind of professor, and it's actually quite a decent film in many respects. But I look forward to the day you put so much into your arts degree that this film is shite, but it's not completely shite. But I also look forward to the day where I click on social media of a morning after Rangers have had a wee bit of a setback, they've played a bit poorly or whatever, maybe even drop some points or something, and it's quiet, it's calm. Everybody's like, these things happen, it'll be fine. I look at my pods, 0 views because nobody's in any way concerned. Kill the panda. Kill the panda. To George, with all my love, from Anne.